I've got 99 problems, but I'm going to ignore them for an hour. Find It Radio Season 1, Episode 5, Running Down a Dream. Hey, I'm Joe. Welcome to Episode 5 already. So this one kind of came out of nowhere. This was, I guess, a take 2 of an episode that I had been working on for about a week and ended up just burning it, just not going to happen. And so that's why there's a bit of a delay for getting this out. Is I made an episode about an attack on our minds that I feel like is going on from the media right now, and mainly my thoughts and some more unexplored theories about the pandemic, about the COVID virus and things like that. And I just didn't want to put it out. So that's what happened. Anyway, so I was looking, that was a couple days ago, so I was looking around, thinking into what else I could do an episode about. And man, I don't know if you've looked around or listened to the media or anything lately, but it's pretty depressing. So I couldn't get in the right headspace to do my typical episodes about this or that or Bigfoot or aliens or, fun stuff, because I was finding it all leading to a darker ending. I love the Lost Dutchman episode, but that had a lot of themes of murder and disappearance and, decapitation. And same thing with the Sedona episode. I really liked that one, but dealing with, just missing people and, native tribes vanishing. It wasn't hitting the right way. So when that happens, I go to my happy place, my brainstorming war room, I guess. And for me, that's going on a run. I'm a runner. I run somewhat frequently, and I'm faster than a lot of people, and a lot of people are faster than me. I like it. But running has always provided me a good reset or an alignment. And when I'm out there, I don't wear headphones. I maybe think of a song in my head just to kind of get things going. Usually it's Tin Man by America. Love that song. Love that band. And it'll float around for a little bit, and then my mind will carry off in 1,000 directions, and it's fun. You can listen to whatever's around you, the sound of cars or the cadence of your steps, things like that. It's fun. I enter this hypnotic / euphoric / uncomfortable state, and I think it's so nice. And that's the way I like to put it, how I describe running. I think running is nice. And the aim of this podcast was to be one you listen to while you run. And the length of the episodes and the topics were going to be designed for a quick run and things that I couldn't find anywhere on a lot of the podcasting platforms for topics that interested me. So that's why I essentially started this. Anyway, a little bit of that. But I quickly changed the theme of it to be a little more encompassing. So here's my running background. This is all going somewhere. running has brought me a lot. And I was always athletic. I grew up playing hockey, soccer, a lot of cycling, mainly BMX, but I never really cared for running or paid attention to it. And my father-in-law is a lifelong runner, but I didn't really notice any of his running accomplishments much. He traveled the world as a pilot. Then that was his kind of go-to, hey, I'm in a new city, got some time to kill, go for a run. I always thought that was pretty cool. But again, never really resonated with me. And when I was living in Austin around summer of 2015, I owned a restaurant at the time, and I was feeling pretty overwhelmed and nothing to really, exhale from or to create an exhale. I played like a few pickup hockey leagues and things like that, but nothing where I can just like, you know what, I'm going to go right now versus waiting for the day or the whatever to happen. So I decided before even starting to run to sign up for the 2016 Austin Marathon, all 26.2 miles of it. I signed up, paid my fee, and then the next website I went to was to order a pair of Nike running shoes, Flyknit Racers in yellow, and a Fitbit. That was the order of things. It was funny. So I was definitely at square one, step one, whatever you want to call it. And most of my runs for about the first month were running for 2 minutes, walking for 1 minute, running for 5 minutes, walking for 1 minute. Just really, I had no body for it. When I was 17, I broke my femur riding BMX, my right femur, and have 3 screws in my femur. I have flat feet. I have pretty short legs. I wasn't built to be a runner, and so it was a little hard to get started. We'll put it that way. But the discipline it taught me through training was much needed. I was very impulsive and pretty selfish at the time, and so that was really good for me. And I only ran by myself, and I only had myself to use as a training coach. It's hard to think that far back in 2015, there weren't 1,000 apps and things like you have now where you can have a real tailor-made, dedicated running program. But anyway, I kind of knew I had to gear up to around 22 miles, and that's what I did. But the sad thing about my marathon journey was about 2 weeks before, I just had this sharp pain in my knee, and it really slowed me down during the marathon. I just taped it up and hoped for the best, and it was the best day I've had, in a long time. I remember every turn, every step of the way, but it could have been a lot better, and I maybe blame myself for thinking I knew how to train for a marathon. Anyway. But I'll never forget that experience. It was really cool. And if you want to have your faith in humanity restored, at least temporarily, run a race and look at all the complete strangers holding signs, getting up early, cheering you on every time you pass someone, and they're just like, "Good job, you can do it." I don't know. It was really cool. And things may be a little different now because of the pandemic, but I hope that that's something that someone can experience, even being on the other side of it. Maybe go check out a race and pass out Gatorade. Anyway, it's really cool and it's really helpful. But my running is more recreational than anything, and I found that the more time in between runs, the faster I get. I don't like to obsess about it. It doesn't have to be something where, I got to run this day, I didn't run this week. I just go when I want and kind of clear out some thoughts. I really like it. And my relationship with running lately is more mild, and certainly for more of a meditation purpose. But I enjoy the experience of all the thoughts bouncing around in my head. And when you have a good run, when you have a fast time, or it's nice out or whatever, you're just feeling good. It's hard to top that feeling. All right, moving on. Well, kind of, but in summary of that, running has been a cool thing. And if you have something you can align with similarly, rock on. But this wouldn't be a Find It episode without some weird stories, though, would it? Which this kind of reminds me to shamelessly plug the first episode of Find It, episode 1 called Gila Monsters. I'm not going to get into it, but this episode, looking back on it, was really fun. And it makes me feel pretty astonished to think back to what that experience meant to me and how I've kind of transformed from what happened to me on just a run by my house. So maybe a where are they now moment, but I've ran that route a few times and have seen some folks running or walking on that same route and haven't had nearly the same excitement as I have that first episode, but maybe I kind of like it that way. That was, well, just listen to it if you haven't, but whatever happened that day, it's kind of where I left it. But when you're running or doing anything active, but we're going to focus on running, the blood and oxygen flow in your body, in your brain, it'll heighten your senses and your perception of your environment, maybe allowing you to see things you may not normally. And I can attribute what happened to me in that episode maybe a little bit to just that heightened sense of alertness, or maybe that's just the way things were. It's interesting, but when you're doing something active and you're maybe with somebody, you're talking, the words flow out, the thoughts flow out. It's good. It's good to do that every once in a while. But I wanted to find, for this episode, maybe some odd encounters or some strange occurrences that have happened to people while out for a run. You think of UFO, Bigfoot, I don't know, ghosts, spirits, whatever. Believe it or not, that's kind of a hard topic to really get any traction on with Google or things like that. There wasn't a lot. So what do you type in? UFO encounters while running, or I was out running and saw a Bigfoot, and then go from there to some story. It wasn't happening the way I wanted to. So maybe I'll focus on the running culture from a little more ancient times, or a few 100,000 years ago. Few hundred, or 1,000 years ago, not 100,000. Here in the desert Southwest, and maybe in the Four Corners area, which has a rich history of running and otherworldly encounters. So here's a cool little article written in ultramarathon.com about Native Americans and a little bit of their cultural foundation of running. This is just a part of the article, but in 1680, a network of Hopi and Zuni runners coordinated a revolt against their Spanish conquerors among some 70 pueblos or villages covering over 300 miles in what is now Arizona and New Mexico. So that's just a lot of territory that you cover by running, and that's how they got around. Without horses, which again didn't really arrive until there was the Spanish invasion, but that's how people got around, and that's just what made, like, looking into the Apaches used only dogs as pack animals. They didn't have horses, and they were conditioned to cover great distances on foot from an early age. And it was recorded that Apache Indians, who were renowned for their toughness, at the age of 15 or 16 had to undertake a long run over rough country carrying a load on their back. Young men were expected to go without sleep in a vigil that could last 48 hours. They then were required to go out into the wilds for 2 weeks, living through their own skill and toughness. An adult Apache could travel on foot over the roughest terrain from 50 to 75 miles a day, keeping this up for several days at a stretch. Many native tribes, including Hopi, Zuni, Apache, Aztecs, Navajo, and so on, have a rich history of being seeded by the Star Brothers and Star people, which kind of goes hand in hand with their stories of origin and creation, that these gods from the stars or their ancestors from the stars gave them these talents to find their way. They taught them how to run. They showed them, and it's an interesting thought to think of this sport or this way of travel, depending on how you look at it and what it's evolved into, originated as just a way of life and a way that this group of people had the upper hand so much versus what we thought were more civilized and advanced colonies that would come in. And oftentimes the owners of that land, the natives, they had the upper hand, and they proved to be successful quite often. But this ties into a very popular running brand. Perhaps you've heard of it, Nike. Well, Nike has a deep connection to native and indigenous cultures with the N7 Fund. And here's a little blurb from their website. The N7 Fund is Nike's commitment to getting youth in Native American and indigenous communities in North America moving so they can lead healthier, happier, and more successful lives. Through Nike's N7 Fund, they support organizations that deliver programs and services to increase physical activity and support education and career development for youth in these communities. So it's cool. It's no shock that many of these tribal communities live in poverty, just horrible, horrible conditions right here in America and in their own sovereign land. And we have a lot of polarizing movements right now about oppression, about who is overlooked, and crimes against this and this and this. And the thing that I always go back to is the treatment of indigenous people has been so fucked up for so long, and no one cares. And so I guess I'm going on a tangent here, but when I see companies like Nike who, they can have a checkered past about things. I don't care if you want to be a cynic and, talk about everything that Nike's done or anything like that. But when I see something like this about trying to rebuild and hone and develop the youth of these at-risk and impoverished nations, I think it's cool. So anyway, back to Nike. That logo has to be the most recognized logo in the world. Maybe not. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, whatever. But what is their logo? And here's where it gets kind of fun. But some say Nike is the winged goddess of victory according to Greek mythology. And their most popular running shoe, which they just came out with the 37th version, is the Pegasus, which is a winged horse. You get it? Nike, goddess of victory, winged horse, running fast, things like that. That's cool. But some people say that it's actually the swoosh, the Nike swoosh, you're picturing it in your head right now. It's the rings of Saturn. For me, that's more fun to believe, as it plays into more of the esoteric influence from beyond theme that I like to run with, no pun intended. But if we're going to look at maybe some of the origins of distance running, of where this way of life has originated from, and a company that is maybe harnessing some of the Saturnalian properties, maybe some of the esoteric properties of Saturn to influence the world to buying into their brand. I don't know. It's a bit of a reach, but I always like that version that Nike's logo is the rings of Saturn and kind of harvesting and manifesting that powerful vibration through their logo, through their company, which Nike's been pretty successful. But just to tie it in back to the natives and a lot of the Star Brothers and Star People ancestry stories, it's kind of there. It's not too far of a reach, but anyway. So what did I find? Well, sometimes in a world like this with so much negativity and stress, I found my sanctuary of sorts. And when I'm running, a type of knowledge fills me. I guess it's like, it's my church. And the best way to understand your landscape is under your feet. And when you're really out there in the streets of your neighborhood or in a trail somewhere remote or anywhere in between, by yourself, by some water, with your friends, with whatever, really pushing your limits and connecting your body and your mind into this physical movement, just, there's nothing like it. I don't need to speak to the benefits of exercise, but for me and for you, maybe you have something like this. Maybe you have a church. If you do, pay your respects. But here's one more thing. I'm going to read an article about the Lionsgate 88 portal. And here's where it gets fun. That's been kind of fun, but the Lionsgate 88 portal is activated by the numerology of 88. The sun in Leo season and the rising of the star Sirius. This is a combination of energy that opens a galactic portal that allows high vibrational energy to be sent to Earth, which we can all tune in and connect with. The Lionsgate 88 portal peaks on the 8th day of the 8th month, but we are likely to feel the current of its energy before and after this date too. Pause. This is from foreverconscious.com. Continue. In numerology, the 8th day of the 8th month is a highly spiritual and charged time. The number 8 represents infinity, the infinite soul that we are and the infinite journey that we take. It represents the forever conscious part of our soul, the soul that has lived and will continue to live long after this incarnation. 8 is also the number associated with DNA activation. Think about it. Think of what a strand of DNA looks like. Looks like the number 8. DNA activation, abundance, power, and higher realms of consciousness, making 8-8 a super potent time to charge and clear our energy for receiving. So, looking at Sirius, which is one of the brightest stars in the sky and is known as our spiritual sun, while our earthly sun illuminates our physical world, which is an illusion, our spiritual sun illuminates the truth of our timeless soul. The ancients were very in tune with the star Sirius, and they believed it was a gateway to heaven and the home of the higher vibrational beings. They believed the energy of Sirius carried highly advanced wisdom that we could tap into and utilize whenever Sirius was strong in the sky. Sirius rising at this time of year was a special and sacred occasion and marked the start of the new year. The ancients would also observe things happening to Mother Earth as well. Last part. In ancient Egypt, the rising of Sirius coincided with the flooding of the Nile. They viewed this as a gift of prosperity and fertility and revered Sirius so much they even aligned their pyramids with its rising as well. There are also theories that the pyramids would act as transmitters, helping to amplify the energy of Sirius in order to channel and download its messages with greater ease. And this article goes on and on and on and on, but going into a few other tribes, Mayans, Sumerians, Babylonians, Dogons, with their connection to this bright blue star. But look into it, see what you can find. But here's where I'm going to tie this in. So today is Thursday, August 6th, and we're talking about the Lion's Gate portal opening on the 8th. That's Saturday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 8.88 miles on Saturday. I'm going to get into my headspace. I'm going to get into my rhythm, my cadence, and I'm going to see what happens. Let my wandering thoughts and try and tune my vibration to what's going on, to the 8-8 energy, the Lion's Gate portal, the energy of Sirius. And I'm going to just seal that whole experience with 8.88. And I'm not even going to say that it sounds a little out there because I'm just really excited about it. So call me a kook, call me awesome. I don't care. I'm really excited for this run on Saturday. And if you listen to this before, hell, do it with me. Anyway, so who knows what'll happen, but maybe it'll take me somewhere beyond. If you've enjoyed this episode of Find It, well, lean into it. Help me out a little bit. Help me out a lot of it. Leave a review, like, subscribe, anything. All that good stuff as I hit the play button. Anywhere you find this, hit the like button, subscribe. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, which just has a different version of the podcast with a little bit more imagery. Very little bit more. But every little thing that you do on Instagram, on my Twitter, at Find It Radio, at Find It Cast, is going to give us a little bit more traction for the dreams that I have for this show and beyond. So this episode was fun. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't, that's okay. But I wanted to peel away from a lot of the negativity that's going around 2020 and let you know of something that I do to find a good release, a good escape, and a lot of potential that may be in there, especially this Saturday. So for Find It, I'm Joe. Keep looking.